So before we use our displacement texture and implement also that feature, let's organize a couple of things. So let me open up the MF layers. And also let me open up the, I believe, the MF textures. So as for the MF layers, we do have a new input here. If you just followed along in the previous episode, you should have the displacement here. But I want to have the albedo, normal, RDO, and then the displacement. So albedo should be sort priority 0, 1, 2, and this one would be then 4. I hope so. So let me check this. So this is the material function. So this one is the right one. So albedo is 0, input is 1, RDO is 2, and then this one would be a 3. And then we have a near, right? Which then would be 4. Far, it's pretty annoying, I know. Would be 5. This is instead of 5 is 6. Instead of 6 it's 7. This one is fine. And I believe, yeah, let's apply and save. Then we can see this is perfectly fine for us. So now this is a little more organized. And as for the parallax occlusion mapping, we can just reopen that. So this is what we just created, this material function, the last episode. And as for default values, we do have a height map channel here, right? This is our cache. It's that one here. So let me just, so we have two height map channels. This is perfectly fine. And we have the parallax occlusion mapping control. So this is what I was looking for. So we should set this for default values. So maybe the height amount should be 0.05. This is like the default amount. Don't go too crazy. And let's just change the min steps to 32 and also the max steps maybe to 64. And the Z offset to something like 0.2. Okay? And then apply and save. So this is default stuff, what we have. So if you just want to have better quality later and you activate the parallax occlusion, make sure that you can also increase the min steps to something like 64. So let's just do it for now. 64 and 64 is always a good value to make it look smooth. The parallax occlusion mapping, so the multiplied values stacking on top of each other. So the more steps you have, the smoother it's going to look. Okay, so now let's take care of our, let me put the textures here first, and layers, then the parallax occlusion mapping. And now let's take care of our displacement feature. Okay, so in order to have an actual input for the displacement texture, we should go to the textures. And here is our freshly created displacement. So you remember, we just copied the normal stuff here and just got ourselves a new input, texture 2D, renamed this to displacement. And we also deleted the normal copy and we just made a cache and then we are using this cache. So we need this input displacement. Just copy that and you can go to your MF layers. And then you just paste it here and just put it like so and make something like this and queue that. Apply and save. So now we have to implement this for all the layers. You remember layer 01, 02, 03 and the rock. So we do have 4 different materials for which the 4th material is our automatic material. We don't paint, it's just our automatic slope material, right? So we have to implement this for all the separate layers. So what we can use is we can leave the MF textures for now and the parallax occlusion mapping. I will just say POM because it's so annoying to pronounce. So just close the layers. Let's open up all those layers. So layer 1, then layer 2, layer 3, and the rock. Perfect. So yeah, this is always a problem. It's always giving me this stuff here, saturation. Can we straighten that? Yeah, I mean, okay, whatever. All right, so now we have every layer here. And now let's add the displacement to each of our layers here. Okay, so now for the first layer, we just copy the RDO. So you can see this parameter texture object, all right? You can just copy that. And we need to rename this. So this one would be layer 1 underscore displacement. All right. So we do have the sort priority 0, 1, 2, 3. This should be 3. Let me see. 3, 4. So what we have to do now, this is 0, 1, 2. This needs to be 3. This needs to be, I'm really sorry for that, but we really have to clean this one up. Trust me. 5, 5, 6. But this one needs to be 6. The albedo tint. Then the albedo controls needs to be 7. This one needs to be 8. We don't really care. Like, you can make it now spaghetti. It's fine. It's okay. 9. Just make sure that we have this one. 9. After that, we do have this one, which is perfectly fine now. 21, 22. This is perfectly fine. Okay, so just make sure that you have the displacement also. We just copied that and called it displacement from the RDO. We just copied the RDO. And now it's pretty easy to just make this in the right order. So just look here. This is top priority 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then we have this one is 6. So the saturation stuff is 6. Sorry for that. This one is 6. Then this one is 7. This one is 8, 9. And then we have the last two, 21, 22. It's perfectly fine. As for the displacement, let's get the default texture, which is our displacement. Let's search for displacement. So we do have this default texture here. And this is pretty important that this one is a grayscale, okay? This needs to be a linear grayscale. Inside here, when you open this one up, the displacement, the sRGB is unchecked and it's a grayscale. Inside this texture, it's a grayscale. The sRGB is unchecked. This is for every displacement you import. Uncheck sRGB. The same for every RDO map. We uncheck sRGB, but the displacement also has the compression settings to grayscale. Okay. So for the displacement, again, sRGB is unchecked. Compression settings is grayscale. For every RDO map you're going to import, the sRGB is also unticked. Let me show you. But the compression settings you can leave at default. This is pretty important to know. When you re-import textures or you just want to have new textures, you don't need to change anything. You just go to your existing material. You want to have like a different grass material. You just click on the RDO, for example, and you re-import with a new file. And then you get the new RDO texture you want to have. Then you repeat those steps, re-import with new file, and then in this case you get the albedo. Right-click, re-import with new file, and then in this case you get the new displacement. And for the normal, re-import with new file, and then you get the new normal. And then you will have your material and it's already assigned and everything's perfect and you don't need to change anything inside here. Okay? Because Unreal Engine is saving those settings. So now you implemented the displacement for the first layer. So this means we can just queue this, select everything, queue that. Then you get all those nodes which are connected and you align them to left. And this is it. And then you can use the arrow key. This is it. Apply and save. And then you do that for, let's just do it together. You get this one, you copy the RDO texture object. You call that one, instead of RDO, you call this one displacement. And albedo is 0, this is 1, this is 2, this is 3, pretty easy stuff. Tiling near would be then 4, tiling far would be then 5. Albedo controls, this one is 7, sorry for that, because the albedo tint comes before that. So then this one will be 6. 6, 7. This one is 8. And this one is 9. And that's it already, because those things are 17 and 18. Yeah, doesn't make any sense, but you know what I mean. It makes sense for our material. So select everything. Make sure the displacement is also connected. Sometimes I just forget about that. Direct select everything, all that stuff. Queue, only get the nodes on, and align them to left and put them like so. And queue this again. Boom. Apply and save. Save. Save this just to make sure. And for the third material, so it's actually pretty fast. We copy this, get for our layer 3 also a displacement. Awesome. 0, 1, 2, connect, then sort priority 3. This one is 4. That one would be then 5. Then the tint would be 6 in this case. And then we have the albedo controls. This one would be 7. Then we check the specular. This one would be 8. So specular and Fresnel and roughness values. And our albedo controls, that would be then 9. But feel free, maybe you want to have the, maybe you want to change something. Maybe first you want to have the AO controls. It's up to you. So it just changed the numbers. And that one then would be 17 and 18. Let's also change that here. So this one would be 17. And that one would be 18. Just to have it uniform. Like universally correct. I hope I don't, I hope this is right, just in case. Maybe it has a reason why this was 21, I'm not sure. Align left, put it together and cue this once more. And the MF rock, we get also the RDO, copy that. We rename the copy to displacement. And this is 0, yes, 1, yes, 2, 3, yes, 3. Connect that one as well. Then this must be 4. This must be 5. Tint must be 6. Albedo controls must be 7. This must be 8. This must be 9. And this is 17 and 18. I don't really remember why I have this gap. I'm not sure. Okay. And align also to left. Put it together. And cue it again. Boom. Apply. And save. Perfect. So we have implemented the displacement for everything. Just make sure that also for the first layer, we click on the... why is there no displacement? Where's the displacement? Sorry for that. I just forgot to hook that one up. Sorry for that. I'm lucky I saw that. Otherwise, I would freak out. I'm lucky I saw that. So when we click on the displacement here, change the default to the displacement because this default displacement texture, as I told you, has the right sampler type. So for the displacement here, make sure you have also the displacement. Just drag it inside, and then it needs to be linear grayscale. Of course, we just drag and drop our textures inside our master material, so in our material instance. We drag and drop our displacement texture later, so we can define like rocky stones, pebbles. We want to displace that stuff, or a different type of grass, soil, dirt, mud. Yes, of course, we drag it inside this slot. But if this slot is a color, or like a linear color or something, it's not going to work. So the sampler type here will always be the sampler type for our material instance. So it needs to be linear grayscale inside our layers function. So apply this and save. And for the layer 3, click on the displacement and also click on the binocular here and get the displacement instead. And this is now changed to linear grayscale as well. It's pretty important. And the rock also binocular. Get the displacement also, drag it inside, and it's linear grayscale. Apply and save. Now let's try if we do have all that stuff. So we can just, why are you telling me that? I think I saved this like hundreds of times. So let's just leave it for now. We are not done with our parallax occlusion because we want to use the light vector, shadow, penumbra, steps and all that. So it's getting really nice. We want to make it look really awesome. But let's just try if this is possible to, when we open up our landscape material, so click on the landscape again, binocular here, and then we open up the material instance. And now let's use the POM displacement texture instead. But before I apply that, let's just get the displacement. I think I forgot something, right? Let me see. I think I forgot to apply the input for our displacement. Let me check that. Or wait, I have a clue. Maybe it's because I forgot to put this into layer 1. But yeah, obviously. So it is, I think it is here anywhere, but in a different section, right? Let me just go back to the layers. So this is set to layer 1. You need to put this also to layer 1. It is. So I just open up the material function landscape layers. Now he's preparing shaders. Okay, can you tell me why the hell you not giving me the displacement? Maybe let's activate it first. I'm confused. This is the reason. Okay, yeah, this is the reason. Sorry for that. So we need to activate the POM use displacement texture first and click this, and then it's going to reveal our displacement. To be honest, I should have changed that, but whatever. So it's only been revealed when we activate inside here, POM use displacement texture. And then let's get it for the layer 1. Let's also get the appropriate texture for that. So this would be the grass. Just get the displacement here and put it into the displacement. And then this is the layer 2. This is the grave on soil. Let's click on this binocular. Here, gravel on soil, sorry. Displacement, drag it inside here. Then let's click on this forest floor binocular and get the displacement. And we do the same for the rock. So click on this mossy rock. And it is not really the mossy rock anymore because we just changed this to a completely different rock, but you get the idea. And we put this into displacement. We need to activate this as well. And then put it inside here. And then we can save that. So far, the material instance, the settings, they work pretty well. And you can also see now we are using the displacement texture itself instead of the packed texture inside our green channel in RDO. So this means the reason why we are using this texture instead of the packed one is because this one is now a linear grayscale. And this is pretty important for displacing stuff to get like a much better result. As for now, you cannot see a huge difference, but this is pretty important that we have the displacement feature implemented. All right, so let me see 0.01, 0.02. So this is perfect. So even like 0.3 is like already enough. Or maybe like 0.4, 0.04. You can see it here when we change these shadow steps. Just look at this displaced edge here. So when we put this one to 16, now you can see like the waves, the small little waves. But when we put this to 64, boom, you cannot really see it anymore. And even when you put this to 128, it's even more soft. Yeah, you can see like how much of a difference that is. So 64 is enough. We should not go too crazy here. So the higher you get, like the more steps you need, obviously. So let's put this to 0.04. And now we can see if we don't use this, now we are using the RDO, and now we can use the displacement texture. But I can see it's going to change here. So I see that this is going to work. All right, now it's updated. Perfect. Looks pretty nice. And don't be afraid when you just change your viewport to something like that. And it's like sometimes it's like a little blurry now, but now it's sharp. This is pretty normal due to the parallax occlusion. Okay, but you can see from this perspective, like when you are like 1 meter, like 1 or 2 meters above, and you see the perspective, it's pretty awesome. It's looking like displacement. So yeah. But let's continue now. And also, if you really, really want to see that I'm not lying to you, and you're like, oh my God, but is it really working or not? Because I cannot see a difference, then make sure that we go back to the MI landscape. And as for the grass displacement, let's just get the default texture here, just to see the difference. So we get this displacement texture. And let's put this one instead. Can you see it here? This is our displacement text. Displacement. You can see it. So if I just deactivate that, it's not anymore. You see? Now we're using the displacement. Boom, and you can see on the grass. Now this texture is being used. This one, okay? Now you can see it. Let's get the grass, displacement. Boom. Pretty nice. So save that. Now we want to implement also shadows for parallax occlusion, which is pretty important. So let's just close everything for now, except for the POM. And we can also close this one. So we want to use shadows, right? For that, let's just get a static bool. And we call this one, wait, not this one, I'm always like completely lost. Static bool parameter in this case, because we want to change it, the name. And this is the POM, so we can see it in our instance. Enable shadows. So we want to have shadows or not? So in most cases we do. And we put this to render shadows. Apply and save. Also press V and click, so we have a vector, and we have this one renamed to POM. And we also need shadow controls. So just like we had like albedo controls, we also want to have like an own section for only shadow controls for the parallax occlusion, which is pretty amazing. And what we need basically for this vector, we're using the RGB channel. You might have guessed that already. You can see here. So for the first one, we get the shadow steps, right? And the default value, we should put this one to 16. Let's see the shadow steps. Default value. The default value is 16. Let's just crank this one up to 32. If this is just too high for you, put this one to 16 or 8. It's perfectly fine. But I will just crank this one up by default to double the quality. For the green channel, we call this one the shadow. Let's do like, you can call it shadow softness or sharpness or something like this. But this is basically the penumbra here we can see on the right side in our node. Shadow penumbra is basically like the sharpness or softness. But I call this one shadow softness. Or shadow blur, you can call it like this. And then we also get the shadow intensity or shadow amount, okay? And as for the shadow softness, I think default value should be 1. And as for the shadow intensity, we should put this to something like 0.5. Otherwise, it could be maybe too much. So this is just default value. And the shadow steps goes into the shadow steps. And the softness is the penumbra. So now you have also the light vector. If we want to have additional shadows on our parallax occlusion material, we need light. Otherwise, without any light information inside this node, there will be no additional shadows to our geometry, which has been raised. So previously, or like in my previous course, in my Silent Hill environment course, I used also the parallax occlusion mapping, just in case if you know the Silent Hill environmental course. Just feel free to check that one out. But there's one thing I can now fix, because when I finished the course, I wasn't really happy about the light vector. Because when I learned about parallax occlusion mapping, about this node, I got told that when we use the light vector, we can just use the default value, and then he will just use our directional light we have in our scene. But this is not correct. We need to set up a blueprint in order to have a separate light source. So this is what we're going to do. So before we set up a basic blueprint, it's pretty simple, just a basic blueprint, just to have a reference to our light source. So we can use it here, and then our shadows will work perfectly, and it's going to look amazing. We need to set up a blueprint and also like a material parameter collection. So we just collect different values inside our inside the material. So let's prepare this. When we see all our material functions, so now it's getting a little bit out of hand. So let's create a subfolder, and we call this one POM. So everything regarding POM, let's just move this here into our POM. And when we open the POM, let's create, let's search for material here. Material collection, material parameter collection, boom. And we call this one material parameter collection, MPC, POM. So when we open up the MPC POM, we only need the vector. So like a material parameter collection is basically, you always have like a scalar value and a vector value. So this means like the vector would be like like a texture object with RGB, so you can use maybe like the red channel or maybe a mixture of that or the green or blue channel. So people use this maybe for like wind also. So when you have like the red channel, the wind goes from one direction to another direction, and the scalar would just be like the wind intensity, for example, and the vector then would be like the wind direction. But in this case, we only need the vector parameter, so you can just click on the plus, and then you're going to have a vector here. You can open this one, and we can leave it as 0. So this means it's black, and so it's transparent and black. This just means everything is 0. And we just use this as a so-called light vector. Okay, and this is it. We save this, and then we are perfectly fine. We're good to go now, and we can start using a blueprint for that. Okay, so you can just close this for now. We have the light vector, and when we go back to our material function POM, we basically need to get the absolute world position, and we need to subtract our absolute world position, depending on our viewport, with the light vector. In order to do that, you just get the absolute world position. Absolute, you cannot find it here anymore, so just get world position. It's pretty annoying, I know, but this one is actually the absolute world position. And also you get the parameter, if I can type parameter collection, search for collection parameter, sorry for that, collection parameter. And you get the light vector here on the left-hand side, okay? But now this is a 3 vector, but this one not technically. So when we just get the XYZ and we subtract that, I cannot type today, subtract, and we do something like this, we would get an error. But if we just deselect this and we get a component mask, and we also add the blue channel, then we will be good to go. You can apply and save. So the only thing what's left is we need to normalize this logic. So depending on our world position, when we just remove or when we just subtract our light vector from that. So in order to get the shadows, depending on where we look and where our light vector is, this is basically what subtract is doing. We need to normalize this. So what is normalized? Basically, it's just we are clamping it. Otherwise, if it's going too crazy. So the light vector, or like the world position is like going nuts. We just normalize it. So we're just putting a threshold to that, something like this. I hope you understand what I'm trying to say. And then we do a cache. So we add again a named reroute declaration node, and we call this one light vector. So our light vector now has logic, which is based on our absolute world position. Okay. So let's just drag select C, press C, and then we use this one as light vector so we can see what's going on. And maybe we get like a nice color maybe. So let's just cue this, put this here, like so, use the arrow to make it more slim. Of course you don't need to do this, but I have to. And let's get a nice color, maybe something like, so we can see that this is a light, basically. Maybe not too strong, like so. Light vector, apply and save. And now we can use that. So now you can just get the light vector. So right click here, and we have our named reroutes. We get the light vector, and we put this one in between, hook this one up to our light vector. Now we can take care of our shadow. We do have an output here. So when we use the light vector, and we have like our shadow steps and softness and all that stuff, we already have an output for the shadow. So we can hook this one up to our shadow here. How can we do this? We just keep holding the A button and click, so you have an add, and you connect the shadow to A and the shadow intensity. Before we do this, and before we add the shadow intensity to our shadows, we should, you don't need to do this, but we should use a 1- because this is inverting our value. Because in this case, if you don't use a 1-, again, we are going to have this confusing problem, or not a problem, but it's just confusing, that when we have a shadow intensity of 0, this means we have shadow enabled, or like we have a good amount of shadow. But if we have this to 1, the shadow is not there. So we want to invert this. This means shadow intensity set to 1 is we have no shadow, but set shadow intensity set the shadow intensity to 1 means we do have shadows enabled. This is the only reason why we use the 1- to invert the value. My God. So, and then add this, apply and save. So before we hook this one up to our output result, we should use a min node, just get the math category, min. So we just leave it at 1. This just means like what kind of shadow value we are going to affect. So is it like a really deep shadow? Like, is it like completely black, or maybe it's just like a higher value of a shadow? So maybe it's a little brighter shadow. This is the reason why we want to have like a min value until when our shadow blackness, I should say, what kind of shadow would be affected. So this is why we use a min. And then we can hook this one up to a static bool parameter. Sorry, I'm just confused. Not a static bool, a static switch parameter. Static switch parameter. Sometimes I'm just confused. And we can just decide if we use the shadow as the POM, right? And if not, we just get a scalar parameter, shadow intensity, and default is 1. And if not, if we use POM, we are using the shadow intensity from our POM shadow. So maybe we should rename this to POM shadow intensity. Let's just, you know what, let's just call it no POM. I'm confused. How should we call it in order to understand? Basic shadow intensity. Yeah, it's whatever. Just so we know that this is just the basic shadow intensity. Otherwise, if we use the PM, which we will, we use this logic using our shadow from our POM data. You know what? Let's use, instead of a parameter, let's just use, press 1 and click. Let's just use a constant of 1. So this will not be visible in our material instance. So we just have a constant here. This is perfectly fine. Let's queue this. Let's put it like so. Like so. And then we can use this bool here, just copy that. And we put it like so. So he's giving us an error, which is fine because we get the UVs. So if it's true, we use the parallax occlusion mapping data to calculate our shadows. If not, we are using just the UVs. Boom. And that's it. Let me just clean this one up a little bit. So let's just get those things. Queue this. Let me put this like so. And let's queue that. Apply and save. Sweet. Now your shaders should prepare because we added something into our output. Let's just apply and save again. Also, the output result here, let's just copy that because we want to use this switch here and making sure that we can use the shadows. So this output should be called shadows. So it's either the POM or the basic shadows using our UVs. And we get the priority to 1 so that we have this on the bottom, basically, like it's sorted. Apply and save again. Okay, so now in order to actually have this in our material instance, so we need to go to you might remember when we go to the MF textures, I know we have a lot, but let me just help you out. When you go to the MF textures, we do have something called texture blend. You remember early in the beginning, in early stages, when we open the MF texture blend from here, you can also just double click. This is basically like the near and far tiling. So we do have like a detailed texture directly in front of us, and then we can also fade, which is pretty cool. So we already put this function early into our master material. But in order to use the shadow, and you remember that our parallax occlusion is only affecting our near tiling, it makes sense to put it inside here into our texture blend near. So when we have an output for our near tiling, so this is only affected near us, okay? So only the detailed texture and not the background texture here. We get a multiply, so keep holding, keep pressing M and click. And then we just connect this one instead, or just in between. And then we can lerp this with our far. But you can see there's something we need to have. And this is also a function input. And this function input is also just a scalar. Just put it to scalar. Let's make it a little smaller, and we call this one parallax occlusion mapping shadows. Shadows. Boom. And now you have also a scalar parameter, like a value you can use. Oh my god. Let me just straighten this here. Right click, straighten this one. And you can also straighten this reroute node. Boom. And you also can straighten this. Sorry for that. Boom. Perfect. And also I don't like this. Let me put this like so. And this one is not really straight. So yeah, just add a POM shadows, a scalar input, function input. It's called function input. You know that already. We did this hundreds of times already. And call it POM shadows. And you just multiply this with our tiling near inside our texture blend material function. And also, let's just organize that. It's not mandatory, but we should have this. So let's check. So we have this. This is at 2, 3. Yeah, this is pretty weird. So priority. So we use the blend, yes or no. So let's just keep it at 2. I don't even care. Then we have the input distance logic, which is 3. Then we have the near, which should be 4. This should be 5 then, the tiling far. And we should have the input shadows at 6, right? Does it make sense? Yeah, it's fine. You can also just put this, let's do 2, 3, and then maybe let's do 4, 5, and 6. Okay, I think this should be fine. Apply and save. Later, I mean, when the master material is finished, of course, we can always go back and change those red nodes, the priority, and make it look really awesome in our material instance. But for now, I think this should be fine. Now, when we go back to our material function textures, we can see, yes, we did extend or expand our material function. So in order to have this correct, this input here, POM shadows, we can use this function here. So let me just make this a little better. And maybe we should get more space. So let's just put it here. And as for the shadows, just add also a named reroute declaration node, and we call this one POM shadows. And we straighten that. Boom. Now we can right click, get our POM shadows, put this one here. Okay. Yeah, we will fix that. Add one more, POM shadows, also for normal. POM shadows, also for the RDO packed texture. And POM shadows also for our displacement, pretty important. Just make it a little bigger here. Cue all that stuff, put it here. Cue all that stuff, and you can even get those and align left. And then let's maybe just put this here so we can see what this is. Put this here, make it bigger, press Q, let's align this, left. Let's make this a little bigger, because the texture here, no, I think it's fine. It's fine. Good. Sorry for that, I was confused. I thought we also had a cache here, but of course we don't. And that one is also good. So we have the POM, oh, sorry for that. We have the POM shadows for our albedo, and we can also just align this out to left. Again, you don't need to clean up that much, but I just do that, apply and save. So now we have the cache. So this whole logic here, including shadows, connected now to our texture blend. So now let's go back to our, let's close the texture blend here. Let's just keep the POM, the textures. Just for the sake of it, let's just keep that. If we open up the material instance again, let's just see our POM. So let's use the POM. So just make sure that you click the use POM and you enable also the POM, and then you're going to reveal your displacement texture. If you want to use the displacement texture, yes, we want to use it, and then we also want to use the POM enable shadows. So if you're confused and you're not seeing that, just enable use POM here, and then the bool will be revealed, and also the bool for our shadows will be revealed, which is perfectly fine. Let me go to really quick, because I don't like this global static switch parameter stuff. So let's go to the material function POM. So we do have the bool and use displacement and all that stuff. So this is the stuff here, this one. So yeah, this should be 1, let's see, and then we use enable shadows and use displacement texture. Let's put this to 1. This should be, no, this should be 1, and this should be 2. 0 is fine. Let's apply, save. So I want to use, where is it? Yeah, sorry for that, use POM. This should be 0, use POM. So first, this is the first question, so I want to have this on top, use POM. If yes, do we want to have a displacement texture? So this is right after that. And then we have enable shadows. No, this one first, and then we ask if we want to have displacement texture. And for those 3 things, we have a group which is none, okay? So this is the reason why this is always like global vector parameter values, okay? Or like global static switch parameter values. We have the shadow controls as well. So let's just group all that stuff. So we can get this, right? So let's put this sort priority to 3. And now we get this, we get this, we get this. So the shadow controls, the use POM switch, the POM enable shadows, the POM use displacement texture. And we put this all into a group called POM. Boom. Apply and save. And also the POM controls. So this one, sorry for that. We put this, you just can click here, POM. And the sort priority in this case should be, let's put this one to 4, the shadow controls to 4, and this one is 3. So we also have the shadow controls. Apply and save. And now we need to find that. We have it here. Here is the POM. Okay, so we have the POM now. Everything regarding POM we have now here. So let's just apply everything. And now this is all sorted, but you can also just, let's do it later. We can also just put the POM maybe on top, or maybe, yeah, we will just do it. But for now, it's fine. We have this organized here. And now let's see if this thing is working. And I can already see, yes, it is. And it's giving us weird shadows, right? So this is not really correct. This is the reason why we have a light vector, and we need to use a blueprint, an actor blueprint for that. So if we go to the shadow controls, here, shadow intensity, put this to 0, and we can see the shadows are gone. And this is like, of course, way too much, but you can see the shadows are not really correct. And so this is the reason why we have to fix this. So now in order to fix that and actually have shadows working and not this blurry mess, we need to create a, let me minimize this. We need to create the blueprint. So inside our POM, let's just do it here. You get a blueprint class, but this one is an actor, pretty self-explanatory. So it's always like an actor blueprint. And we call this one light vector, BP underscore light vector. And when we open that one up, this is pretty simple. We go into our construction script. So you always have an event graph where you have like this event begin play and all that logic you use for games and stuff. But in this case, we just want to use the construction script. What's the difference? The construction script is basically changing our blueprint right from the beginning. So the blueprint itself will be constructed differently, I should say. So when you want to change something out of the box, like right away, I hope you understand what I'm saying. So we are just constructing the blueprint basically. So in this case it's set. We want to set the stuff we created, right? So set vector parameter value, and this one would be our material parameter collection, the parallax occlusion mapping. And inside there we have a light vector, okay? Get the default scene root. So this is just our location for the actor blueprint. So we use the scene root, and we want to get the location. We want to get the word location. And we put this one into our parameter value. This gets converted from our vector location. So yellow is vector location, which means X, Y, and Z, X, Y, and Z. But we convert this to a color, so RGB. And then let's just do like so, or we can just put it like so. Doesn't really matter. And cue that, just to clean this up. Perfect. Compile and save. All right, and this is it. Basic blueprint. Really, really simple. So now let's just try if this is going to work. If you want to see this, if this is going to work, just drag the blueprint actor inside here and just do something like this. And now you can see the shadows. Look at this branch here. The shadows reacting to our height of our POM, which is pretty cool. In this case, the sun is there, so maybe we should just put this one here and move it up, like so. Let me get a bookmark here, so otherwise it's pretty annoying. So yeah, let me get a bookmark. So now just get a good height, so let's see. So a good viewport here, and then click on the light vector and just try to align this with the sun. So maybe here, and then you can get the shadow steps. So 16, 32, 64 maybe. Shadow softness, just make it a little sharper. So something like 2. And then shadow intensity. And then if you just crank up the shadow intensity, of course this is too much, but now you can see that it's working. So we do have only shadows on elevated areas of each. Let's just put this here. So maybe like so. And then let's do softness. So 2 should be a good value, so they have more definition. And intensity, maybe 0.8. So this is no shadow, 0.8. 0.8 is fine, I believe. And then just play with those amounts. Max steps should be 64, sorry. And 128. Just to crank this up to maximum. So let's keep it 64. 64 and offset, let's do 0.2. And this one should be 0.04. So if I have the shadow steps here at 0, so we have no shadows at all, let's do 16. Now you can see. In order to have like really nice and detailed shadows according to your displacement, or in this case POM, you just have to place your light vector accordingly. And also, just to get stronger shadows, just put it more down, but I think this is fine. And as for the shadow intensity, I just keep it at default 1. So if you just put this one to 0, so no shadows at all, 0.5, we do have a little bit of shadow, but to really see it, you should have something between 0.5 and 1. So maybe 0.8 is enough. And then you can see here the difference. Okay, let me just keep it at 1. I like it. Cool, so now we have that. Sometimes you can have a bug. I just found out, and it was really frustrating, and it took me almost 1 hour to realize. Sometimes when you see that the displacement is off and it's all blurry and the parallax occlusion mapping is not working anymore, and you get all those weird shadow artifacts, is because of your displacement texture. So you have to go here and basically click on this texture again, and then it's applied again. And now you have nice shadows. So yeah, this is a bug. Pretty annoying. It took me like almost 1 hour to find out what's going on. But finally I found out. So now it is working. So let's set it here maybe. And then when we go back to our landscape, it's just annoying because I'm wasting another hour for nothing here. Now let's play with the POM again. So shadow steps, 64, shadow softness. Here you can get it sharper. Maybe you want to have something like that. So this is without any parallax occlusion mapping shadow. And here you have additional shadow. And you can see how perfect that is. One might be a little too much, but you can use one, but just get your light vector and just increase the height. Just crank it up here on the right-hand side until you think it's good. So maybe let's do 80,000 in this case. 70,000 would be too strong. 75. So yeah, you can see. And shadow softness, make it a little softer. And here you can see without shadows, with shadow. So let's go for 70,000. Perfect. Now you can see how good that looks. So for close-up shots, pretty nice. Save. So just in case if you lose all the details and everything is weird looking, you need to reapply your displacement texture. Just click on it, on the binocular, and click on your displacement texture. All right, this is it.